go.
So I'm Steve Griffiths. I'm the Executive Director of Office of Institute Initiatives at the Masdar Institute, and I oversee all the research activities. Also, I'm a professor of practice in chemical engineering. I do a lot of energy strategy research and engage on different topics with local stakeholders and trying to look at what they need to see done for doing research that's relevant to Abu Dhabi and the region.
And you're working on some BIPV, Building Integrated Photovoltaic Research at Masdar Institute, if I understand correctly?
There's some BIPV going on. In general, we call it organic photovoltaics. Okay. So if you're familiar, we have the silicon photovoltaics, the thin films, and the third generation BIPV organics. Mm-hmm. So the organics are a little less efficient, but they're very flexible. Mm-hmm. They work in low light conditions, and we're doing a lot of that down in the advanced cleaning that we have. They were originally established for semiconductors, but now looking at using the same facilities for organic PV. Mm-hmm. And we have some student thesis work. And in fact, this is a master's degree project that's turned into a PhD project.
And so you're overseeing all of this stuff. And is this all of the solar research?
No, that's a good question. So the BIPV is just one part of a bigger picture. So at the Masdar Institute, to kind of give you a sense of what we're doing, we start with trying to understand the solar resource in the UAE. So we have the Research Center for Renewable Energy Mapping and Assessment, which we've done collaboratively with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Environment Agency of Abu Dhabi, Dubai Supreme Council of Energy, and IRENA. So that center has done the full wind and solar resource assessment for the UAE. Now we're also working with Saudi Arabia, KA to do the solar assessment for them, and work with different countries as well. So we know now very well in the UAE the solar resources, the DNI, the GHI, the DHI, so we know when PV and CSP all work well. Then we look at the different technologies which we want to focus our efforts on. Technology being developed globally in solar, and so we try to focus on unique areas. We've done some work in amorphous thin film silicon with our partner Masdar PV. More broadly, though, we've done much of the multi-junction research that's of relevance to trying to get higher efficiency cells, which, for instance, would be used in what we've heard of these solar car racing with very advanced technologies, incorporating different types of technologies, not just the multi-junction, but also looking at light trapping technologies, different surface modifications of cells and like. And then we look at the dust problems of PV in the region. So we have a large project in measuring the performance of PV panels with different coatings. Some of them, all of them, we're hoping will work better with the dusty environment condition we have. And then on the CSP side, we do lots with energy storage. We have a unique 100 kilowatt thermal beam down tower at Masdar City. So we've been using that facility to look at different storage technologies, which is going to be extremely important if CSP is ever going to become cost-effective relative to photovoltaics.
Definitely. Yeah, I got an intro on the solar resource mapping projects in January. It was really interesting to hear about, and saw some of the mapping. It's pretty cool. So what do you specifically focus on when you're not overseeing everything?
Well, my major activity outside of the oversight of research is working on energy strategy. So I'm an associate editor of an Elsevier journal called Energy Strategy Reviews. Worked a lot with the government and some of my other colleagues at Masdar Institute and look at the integrated water and power system, trying to see where renewables and alternative forms of energy, as well as energy efficiency on the demand side, can fit into the future energy system of the UAE. So we've been very, very much focused on seeing if there is an economic case for renewables, and I think we've done pretty well in making an argument in the future when you look at the marginal new build of power in the UAE, to not think about putting that into the traditional hydrocarbon facilities, power and water cogen, but looking to diversify. Nuclear we already know is happening, but more and more above even the 7% capacity target for renewables, more renewables which can feed into the system, help alleviate some of the concerns of having future with much more expensive hydrocarbon for the power generation, and also then thinking about how these technologies like reverse osmosis, membrane-driven clean water production would fit in that system when you start to eliminate thermal cogeneration. So all the things that you see Masdar doing, we're talking about solar cars, high efficiency cells, we look at that, the renewable desalination project, you talk about, we work directly in that, and I think about those from a strategic level, modeling the entire system, and that conveys down into the research strategy we have at the Masdar Institute.
Yeah, and on the CSP storage stuff, what kind of storage are you looking at?
So there's an interesting pilot we're starting very soon with a company that uses a type of concrete, which is a very good energy storage source, which will be doing a pilot scale. They're called Nest. They're Norwegian. They'll be coming to do a pilot at Masdar City. think that's public information now, so we've had a press release, so I can tell you about that. And then we also look at the different salts. So now one of the nitrate-based salts, traditional technologies that are out in the market, but they don't get up to the very, very high temperatures that we're hoping to see in the future to have very high efficiency CSP plants. So we look at now different types of salts which could allow us to run those energy storage projects at very high temperatures and have very high efficiency. Is going to be storage is going to allow you to run dispatchable solar. So without dispatchable solar, you're not going to have a very effective or very cost efficient concentrated solar technology.
Yeah, and it seems like like you said, that's the key element for CSP that will make it competitive with PV, or competitive sooner, I guess.
I mean, if I look out in the future, maybe more than 5 years, but you're going to see advancements, and maybe not the parabolic troughs, but the power towers, for instance. If you bring in high temperature storage capabilities and you can run storage for say 14 hours, you have dispatchable electricity. You have a very good opportunity with advanced components to bring the cost of CSP down. In areas with good DNI, very high DNI, you can certainly be cost competitive.
With the organic solar, we've been covering it for years. Covering the efficiency improvements basically as they come along. And if I recall, organic solar is used in some like mobile technologies already, or
for a long time. Yeah, so
it's
organic photovoltaics, mobile technologies. because low efficiency isn't the big deal. It's more about the form factors and the ability to work into, say, your calculators.
Do you ever see that really? Do you ever see it breaking out into broader markets, or is it?
It could. I mean, I know that we've just had interesting discussions with the UK, and they're a huge, booming market this year. And I looked at their technology roadmap, and they talk extensively about BIPV. And I wonder why BIPV, and they've got very low, it's not a sunny region, they've got low light conditions, and they find an ability to have a niche for their companies to become innovative in that space and try to increase efficiencies and make that something of their own. In the UAE, we have
the Oxford?
Yes, you've heard about that.
Yeah.
So they've got a big initiative. Now in the UAE, the interesting feature of I think of OPV and dye sensitized and all those kind of flexible solar cells is you've got this architecture here which is highly ornate. And there's not a huge price sensitivity if you can bring a electricity source into an architecture which is interesting and novel. That might offer a whole new market for OPV and organics and flexible solar cells in general. So I think that there's an ability to think beyond the traditional, let's feed in electricity to your home or to the grid, and see different applications where the price sensitivity or the price points are much, much different. I think that's a very good opportunity and something that needs to be explored here in the region.
CPV. I mean, it's hard to know what's the future of solar. Nobody really predicted the dramatic fall that we saw in the cost of conventional PV. But I'm quite bullish in the long term on CPV becoming a significant player. I know others are, and I know others who are very skeptical and think it's always just going to be very niche. What do you think on CPV? Do you think in 10, 15 years it could be competing in some much larger markets, or do you think it's going to be?
Well, I mean, it's got the same issues as the CSP and requiring a very, very strong, good DNI. When you have a region with the direct normal insulation, which is very strong, and you have very efficient cells, bring the cost down. Typically, they'll be the multi-junction, a little bit more expensive, but extremely high efficiency. It can be competitive. I would say the market will not be, my guess today, and of course things can always change, would not be enormous, because you're going to see the price of silicon photovoltaics dropping, and
it's really low.
Grid parity, and it works robustly and well. But you never know. You look at these interesting applications today, which allow these multi-junction cells, and which could be applicable to CPV. You allow them to be further looked at. Try to overcome some of the areas where there's high costs, which is at the junction itself, the interfaces. And if things get worked out, you never say never. There might be a good opportunity, but it's all about looking where that type of technology makes sense.
Right.
And so to get a levelized cost, which is competitive.
Right. It all comes down to cost eventually. Final question that I ask a lot of these clean tech experts: what's your favorite song?
My favorite song? Yeah, you've really shocked me on that one. Jeez. Well, I can tell you, I think that's the one question you probably stumped me on. Jeez, my favorite.
It tends to do that to a lot of people.
Yeah.
One of your favorites you could pull.
One of my favorite songs. Let's see.
Go back to your college days.
Yeah. Well, I have to go back to the day of Motley Crue, right? Kickstart My Heart, things kind of songs. So
Sounds good.
it takes me back. So whenever I hear that song, I turn up the radio. So maybe that's
Awesome.
it.
Excellent. Thanks.